Hey everybody, welcome back to Teachers Talkin'. This is episode 6, The Heart of Education, Building Lasting Connections in Your Classroom. I am Dustin here with my co-host Ghazali, and we are extremely excited once again to bring on our second guest onto our podcast. This is Kip Morales. And so we are going to really focus today on how to be intentional, or how do intentional efforts help to build relationships and community within the classroom and the school in order to contribute to a positive and effective learning environment. So before we jump in, Kip, could you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where do you teach, your school, your location? What's your background in education like?
Okay, hey, Dustin Ghazali, and anyone listening, that's cool. Yeah, so I'm Kip Morales. I teach in Los Angeles in inner city schools, in a charter school where most of my students are, I'd probably say 99% are Latinx. But I've been teaching for a long time. So I teach English. Sometimes I teach martial arts too, self-defense, help the kids be able to navigate the streets confidently. Yeah, so I've been teaching for a long time. I've taught in different aspects. I've taught in 3 prisons. I've taught in businessmen and women in Japan. I've taught in New Mexico on Native American reservations, Indigenous peoples reservations. I mean, do we even call them reservations anymore? That's pretty bad, huh? Yeah, and then inner city schools. So I've taught in LUSD, and now I'm at Alliance, the Alliance Charter Network in Los Angeles. Want
Oh
more?
wow, you've been around, Kip. You've been to many places. And
Yeah, I've been a long time. I used to teach tennis. That's where I started. And then I
wow.
moved into all sorts of other things. And then I finally went to into secondary school.
Ah, okay. So, building a positive culture and community in the educational environment is crucial. We all know that, because it enhances learning, emotional well-being, increase motivation. But I think we want to hear from you. Why is building a positive culture and community crucial in the educational environment in your perspective?
Well, it's the base. I mean, if you don't have the positivity, you don't have learning. I mean, okay, so let me get a little more technical. It's all about brain science, right? It's all about chemicals. And if students aren't releasing the correct chemicals, they're not going to be inspired. They're going to be shutting down. They're going to be going into their what's called the lizard brain, and very little learning, if any, is going to go on. Especially if they're constantly worried about anything. If trauma is triggered, if they're feeling like they're in an unsafe environment, basically very little learning is going to happen. So it's all about brain chemicals in the beginning, and just making sure those happy brain chemicals like serotonin, oh man, there's like at least 5 of them, are being released and allowing the synapses to open up in the brain, and allowing processes to be able to happen, as opposed to just cortisol, which would just shut them down. And the only way they can get rid of cortisol supposedly is crying, peeing, or sweating. And we don't really have a lot of that in the classroom. I guess we could probably have them all do jumping jacks or something, but try to release it. But yeah, so we're trying to keep their brain ready to learn that. So it's basically the base. If you don't have that, it's going to be really challenging for a student to learn.
Yeah, it's like thinking about having, like when you think about like Maslow, right? And having like creating that base level of safety and security, care, respect. Like without it, learning simply can't happen.
Yeah.
So, what would you say, Kip, are some of the key strategies that you use to create that positive and inclusive classroom culture that helps to foster those strong relationships that you have?
Okay. Well, there's so many, but I'm just going to kind of try to limit it to 5 if I can. I don't know. Sorry, had a little cold. I'm okay now. Yeah, the very, very first thing is if you want to help somebody change, whether it's changing their behavior or changing their skill set or changing their life, you have to first start out with the environment. So I veer a little bit away from standard environment for schools. Basically, you need to change the environment. The classroom needs to look welcoming. The classroom needs to feel, when they walk in, they got to feel like this is a place I want to be at. So I know, like, my school is like really on to word walls, and that's great, but if you just plaster your walls with a bunch of information, that's not going to be very welcoming. And so, I have a rocking chair in my room, for my calm corner if students need to just go take a break. I have paintings in my room. Sorry. And so when they walk in, and then I certainly don't have graveyard rows, right? Where, I have them in when they come, they sit in a team of 4 to 5 other students facing each other. And then I try to make sure that no one's back is towards me, at least where my position would normally be in the classroom when I'm there. So I want them to walk into an environment where they feel not only safe, but they feel they feel like they can be creative. That's the first one.
So how do you use that? I was like, so how do you use that to help you build the relationships then? Because I love the way that you have such a welcoming environment as like step one. So then how do you transition from just like that welcoming environment to actually making kids feel safe with you and building those relationships together?
I love that. Making kids feel safe with you. Okay, so next one is really a Tai Chi Chuan theory. Energy first. What energy are you bringing into the classroom? The teacher. That's critical, right? You have to bring in a very calm, soft, empowered energy. And then they can possibly trust you. The whole point is, like, can students trust you? Right? I mean, that's critical. And you can't just say, trust me, right? And so are you bringing in some good energy? Are you dropping all your problems at the door before you walk into your classroom? And are you ready for the students? They need to be able to have trust to be able to learn. They can't be like scared that you're going to, start using sarcasm at them, or you start or just calling them out. You have to bring in energy. So you have to do something. You have to work out. You have to, I don't know what you have to do, but you have to bring in this energy. And that's like something really critical. My students, like, they're like, why don't you ever get angry? I never see you angry. This is like really weird. And I'm like, well, can you trust an angry teacher? I don't think you can. And so very first thing is environment. Second is what you bring into the classroom. And that's critical. And if you find yourself in the classroom starting to feel a little angry or starting to feel a little down or whatever it is, you just need to stop what you're doing. Even if you have to stop the whole class, and you need to sit down, you need to readjust and gain that energy back and just change your mindset. So that's number 2.
We talked a little bit about that in our last episode, right, Gonzalo, about being truthful. Like we talked a bit about like when you're not having a great day, like being honest with your students and straightforward and like just letting them know right away so that you can break down that kind of barrier. And you know, I had a leader who once used to say, we create our own weather. And it's exactly what you're saying, Kip. Like it's all about like the energy that you bring in, you can control. And even though some, like, we have our own baggage too, and we do our best to check it at the door, and sometimes we can and sometimes we can't, because we're just humans as well. So when we can, we should, so that the kids can feel our positive energy, and when we can't, being straightforward with the kids as well. And I love that you said taking a moment, like if you feel like you're getting frustrated or whatever, being able to take a moment to yourself, get away, like let that's just such a powerful way of like recentering to keep that
Yeah.
energy positive.
Calm
Yeah.
down, get your center back, and teach in a positive environment. Yeah. So that was very interesting about building the culture in the classroom. And I also noticed as we are getting older, the age gap between us and our students get bigger. So what tips can you give to help us connect with students on a personal level? So how do you make an effort to understand and connect with each student on a personal level? And why is this even important?
Well, stay young. No, I'm just joking. I wish I could stay young.
Tell me the
Find that
secret to
fountain
that,
of
your
youth.
fountain of youth.
My students keep me young anyway. Yeah. Yeah. So on a personal level, so I guess my third rule that I just kind of created, because yeah, no, it's actually a rule for me. Positive pedagogy. That's what I call it. Deal with everything positively. So for example, if a student is distracting the class, or a student is attacking you personally, or whatever it is, instead of go negative, go positive. And so if you look at the situation negatively, you're right. Sure, they're attacking you, or they're messing up the class, or messing up other people, and they're messing up themselves. Or if you look at it positive, you're right. As in, okay, this is a behavior that's requesting help, requesting you to come and help them. This is how they express themselves to try to get help. If they throw something across the class, or if they make a loud noise, or if they make an inappropriate joke, they're asking for your help. And so you're right there too. So why choose the negative instead of choosing the positive? So, when something like that happens, if the peers aren't if the peers aren't helping them at that moment, I go over and help them. And I go over and I'm like, yeah, okay, so I noticed you called me. How can I help you? And called me. What do you mean? What do you mean? I didn't call you. I'm like, yeah, sure. You made that really weird bird noise, and that called me over. I mean, you got to know that that's going to call a teacher over, right? Okay. So how can I help you? What can I do? Or I might have them step outside the class, and I'll be half in the class, half out the class. And I'm like, and they think they're in trouble. And I go, okay, man, hey, is everything okay today? I just noticed you keep making these noises, and I think maybe something's going on. Let me know what's going on. And they'll be like, no, nothing. It's like, well, dude, I mean, you're calling me over, so something must be going on. So how can I help you? What can I do for you? You know? And so that right there, really, they start to trust you. They keep trusting you. They see that you're there as a support, as opposed to as an authority or as a disciplinarian. And so that's one part of positive pedagogy. But positive pedagogy is really just trying to maintain the positivity, to go all the way back to what we talked about before, to maintain the happy brain chemicals flowing, and to allow the synapses to allow to share information inside your brain. So that's one way. And that kind of moves into, I don't know. Did I answer? I think I answered your question, but yeah. Okay, we'll go to number 4. I'm not sure how much time we have, but yeah, so number
All the
4
time we need.
is, what's that?
We have all the time we need.
Okay, because you always edit this thing. Yeah, that's cool. All right, so good. Edit my coughs. Okay. Yeah, so number 4, I guess, would be a decentralized classroom. And I don't even hear that anymore. It used to be like a big common pedagogy that was out there, and yeah, I don't hear it at all anymore. So it's kind of weird. So anyway, decentralized approach. This is kind of like the cream of the crop for me. So I have students in different roles in the classroom. And it really depends on what it sort of depends on what level you're teaching about how much you can do this. Like, for example, my ninth graders, last year and then this year, last year they gave me ninth graders as well as 10th graders, but ninth graders are a whole different breed of human. you know. But when I taught in middle school, I could do this. When I taught as I teach in high school, I can do this. What I'm about to tell you, the decentralized approach. But ninth graders is just I can do it, but I have to do it in gradual steps, and sometimes they're not ready for roles. So what I'm talking about is basically I have my students call me coach. Everyone calls me coach now. I don't know why, but I just want my students to call me coach. And coach is to allow them to know that, to remind them, make them feel weird. Why am I calling the teacher coach? To make them feel weird, to make them feel like weird, and that it will be a trigger to make them remember what their role in the class is. What their role in the class is, they are the teachers. I'm the coach. I'm the mentor. I'm walking out. I'm in a supporting role. And sometimes, when they get to that zone of proximal development, another term I never hear anymore, where they just can't go further, then I will jump in and I will help. But basically, they are the teachers in the classroom, and so therefore they're going to have roles of being a teacher in the classroom. So one of the roles is every team has a facilitator. But sometimes I change the teams, and the facilitator is a writing coach or a reading coach. So students kind of earn that position. But basically, let's just talk facilitator. So every group has a facilitator, and the facilitator is in charge of facilitating the learning and facilitating discussion and basically helping the students of their team members and themselves teach each other. And then also I have what are called ambassadors. So I have 2 ambassadors in my classroom also. And the ambassadors are the ones who start the class. I don't start the class. They start the class. Once they're done with what we call the do now, which is a short assignment in the very beginning while I'm taking a role and everything. The ambassadors step up. They have students read the objective, read the standard, and go through start going through the agenda. But basically, they start the class, and then usually activities are guided by the facilitators. So I'm free. I'm like walking around trying to have them call me so I can participate. So they have to call me. They get hungry, and then they ask questions. If they're asking me questions, then they're ready for learning. If they want me to teach them a mini lesson, they're ready for learning, as opposed to me trying to push it. So I'm in a supportive role, and so they don't kind of look at me as the authority. Really, in the classroom are the facilitators and the ambassadors. And even when a student is sort of putting their head down or whatever, I go to the facilitator. I don't go to that student unless the facilitator it's not working, the peer is not working, then I step in. So it's a decentralized approach. That's it in a nutshell. There's quite a bit of elements to it.
Can you tell us, I love your approach. And I know you've used this approach for a long time, but can you tell us a little bit about how you work with your students like early in the year to develop those roles? Like, how do you teach students to begin class instead of you? Like, how do you teach students to be those facilitators and to take that leadership role so that you can be the support? Like, how do you go about actually like building that up in the students?
Yeah, so it really depends on the students. So for example, when I was teaching at LUSD, when there was that Santee Education Complex, and I don't know, the students are on a rotation basis. There are about 6,000 students at at that school on a rotation basis. And you step in the hallways, you can't tell who is what and where is who. And then when they walk into the classroom, these students, when they would walk to school or come to school, they'd probably have to go, there's probably around 50 different gangs around that area. And so they're dealing with a lot of that stuff, but also, so with them, right from the very beginning, I would say, sit where you want to sit with your friends, but mainly sit with somebody who you think's going to support you and help you. Right. And then, this is one approach. This is not the approach. This is one approach. It really depends on the students you're with. And I'm like, okay, now everyone point at somebody that in your group, point at somebody that you're willing to take orders from. That if that person says jump, you're going to jump. If that person says quiet, you're going to be quiet, and you're going to be thankful for that. So they all point at somebody. I'm like, congratulations, you've just been elected the facilitator. And so basically, this is the person that's going to help you to learn, and this is the person that you're going to listen to. And when you're like going off on something and they tell you to be quiet, you're going to be quiet. Or if they ask you to talk, you're going to talk. And so basically, it just right there, we already set it up. Now, are they the best people? Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. But you're the support for those facilitators. Ambassadors, I take a little bit of time to choose who the ambassadors are going to be, because it's a role where you have to stand up in front of the whole class. But in my back wall, I have on my back wall, I have basically steps of starting the class. So all the ambassadors have to do, they step up. All they have to do is look at the step, and it says, like, for example, it says, get everyone's attention. And so they have to get everyone's attention. And then it says, welcome them. So say good morning, whatever, right? And then step number 3 is have somebody read the standard, and then have somebody read the objective. And so basically they just look at that back wall. They know exactly what to do. And then I'm there for support. I'm there I'll model it. Obviously you have to model it in the beginning. And then as they kind of struggle, I'm like, hey, you weren't born an ambassador, so don't worry about it. You're learning as you go. This is great. Just standing up there is amazing. So constantly giving this praise, right? The 5 to 1 thing, 5 positive comments to 1 negative comment is very important. And so instead of like making fun of them because they can't do it, you congratulate them. So to start this off, oftentimes, now some teachers, if you're new, maybe that might be a little too daunting to have students choose their chairs, because they're going to sit with some people that probably aren't the right people to sit with. And so you could instead like, have alpha teams where they all sit in alphabetical orders on depending, and eventually start moving students based on what you've experienced and trying to find leaders. You can do that too. So I don't know. I mean, for me, I started this when I was teaching on the Navajo reservation. And I found out that when I tried to get parents to help, they were apathetic. They didn't want my students leaving the reservation. They didn't want them going to college. A lot of them didn't. And so trying to get students to be motivated, there was so much apathy in the students and then in their parents towards education. And so I had to come up with something that was going to motivate the students. And so I basically had the students motivate the students. And that's the system right here. And so instead of the students just doing something for themselves, they're doing something for this other person, this facilitator that they care about. So that's how it started. Yeah.
Do you give, like for your facilitators, since your like ambassadors have sort of that step-by-step checklist that you hang up on the back wall, do you do anything like that for your facilitators? Like, do you give them like sentence stems or question stems or anything like that to help them like facilitate their group conversations?
Yeah, I'll have I have another list on the wall that basically different types of strategies that they can use, like for example, in discussion, stuff like that. Like write first, discuss later. So have your students all, tell your students to take 30 seconds to answer the question or a minute to answer the question. And then maybe a first person, last person where, okay, you're going to share out first, being the facilitator, you're going to share out first, and the person to your left is going to say something that they liked about your thing, and possibly a rose and a thorn. I don't like that thorn thing, but the rose and a thorn sort of thing. And then they're going to share out. And so then it goes all the way around. And then once it goes all the way around, it gets back to you, the facilitator is going to give some sort of positive and maybe a question, like, or something like, a thorn. And then you enter into discussion. Then you come to a consensus on the answer. And so, yeah, I give them, I have different strategies that they can choose from, or actually ask the facilitators to use those strategies, like first person, last person. I don't know if that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Ghazali, before you jump into your next question, I wanted to tell a little story. So this kind of brings everything that Kip's talking about full circle. So when we were together in Los Angeles, I was an assistant principal and Kip was out for the day. And there was a point in time where, like, all of a sudden these like two students come down to the administrative offices and they said, we've been in class for 45 minutes. We were on a block schedule. So what do we have? Like 90-minute classes, Kip? Something like
A little
that.
bit more. Yeah, a little bit longer.
And they said, it's been 45 minutes and we don't have a teacher. And we were like, what? So my principal and I go running up to this classroom because we had been doing, like, we're a small school. So we would pick up when teachers were out, we would pick up and we would sub. Well, somebody just simply forgot that they were subbing that period. So we run up there and we go into the classroom, and you would think that there would be chaos, but there wasn't. All the students were doing exactly what they should be doing. And there were students at the front leading the group, and all the kids were doing their work. And we were like, what's going on? And the kids were like, yeah, like, we only really wanted to let you know we didn't have a teacher in here. We thought we should let you know, but we're fine without a teacher. Like, we've got this. And it was because of this decentralized model that he uses, where class started, they were just like, oh, Mr. Morales, Coach Morales isn't here right now. We're just going to jump in and get started. Like, we know what to do. So his ambassadors started class. They went over the do now. They went over the standard and the objective. They told the kids what was, how to move into their work time. And then the facilitators picked it up and started leading their teams. And so they were just working. And then at some point in time, somebody looked at the clock and realized there was still no adult in the classroom and thought they should let somebody know that there was no adult in the classroom. But they were so self-sufficient, you would have never known. They could have gone that entire period with no adult in the room, and you would have never, ever known that was going on. Like, that is the level of community that he established in his classroom. And so I love to share that story because, one, it's like, for a while we were like, should we tell people about this? Like, that's kind of against policy, but that was many years ago now. And it just goes to show how building that strong community, that strong culture in a classroom can go such a long way.
Yeah, when I talked to the students when I came back, I didn't realize. And they said, yeah, we thought you were testing us. We thought you had like a video camera up somewhere. And so we just, the ambassadors just started the class. They got it going. And after a while, they said, maybe he's not testing us. Maybe he's actually not really here. That's funny. I was at a teacher training, so it was cool. Yeah.
So Kip, it looks like you have a solid foundation or method of building the classroom community. I'm just curious, do you extend or how do you extend this community beyond the classroom? How can educators contribute to building a sense of community within, let's say, the entire school, and then perhaps after that the community outside the school, which can involve both students and staff? Do you do anything that can shed light on this?
You really want to open that? Yeah, I do a lot. So Oh boy. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna give you some more stuff then. Yeah, so one of my mottos is to make education real. And so education is just not encapitalized within a classroom and then they walk out and whatever they do. So everything that, like, for example, English is about communication. I mean, every different subject is about something else, but that they need to apply. So English is about communication. That's what I tell them. You're learning to communicate. You're learning to understand people, and you're learning to get what you need through communication. And so you're gonna. I tell them they're gonna learn the skill in the classroom, but then they're gonna apply the skill outside of the classroom. Or yeah, so so I started searching for some sort of organization or a club or something that they could actually use what they're doing in the classroom outside the classroom. Eventually, I found what one club called JSA, or Junior State of America, which is an organization where students get together and they debate, or they talk and try to discuss and try to work problems out together. It's a national organization. And so basically, I offer that as the we go to conventions, we go to conferences, we use JSA inside the class, inside the school, and make changes in the school. We host, like, for example, we hosted school-wide debates, where what we call homerooms, or advisories, where they would debate each other and eventually go to the big stage and compete in front of the whole school. And so basically, it's all about trying to have them apply what they're doing in the classroom, outside the classroom. We also, have, like, last year we were national champions for, we won, what's it called? The Civic Impact Award. So we won national champions for Civic Impact Award, even though we're only 600 something students at my school. And basically what the students were doing, they were going out, they're in internships, and we're just talking high school students. They're in internships, they were out making changes in the community, they were making changes in the classroom, they're making changes in the school, etc. And so basically trying to provide as much opportunity as I can for the students to use their voice, because I'm English. Now others would be math or science or something like that, and they would try to figure out how can they actually start applying this to their lives now. That's one way. Right now, my students are my JSA students, who, by the way, so almost all my students are in JSA. So every year I get classes, I'm like, guess what? I got a club you're going to be in, and you're in it. You're in it. So this is, as much how much you do in that club or not, you're in my class, therefore you're in the club. And so right now they're doing they've been assigned a job to it's another organization. It's called No Place for Hate. And they're basically in charge of taking hate out of our day-to-day activities, our day-to-day communication in the whole school. And so they're building, they have a small team, and then the small team is basically going to infiltrate through the whole, so all students are going to be working on this No Place for Hate thing. And again, that's all about communication. And so we're gonna change the whole environment of the school, so that we can reduce the hate that's out there, because hey, this year, lots of hate. So we want to try to make sure we have a nice, safe environment in the school, not just the classroom, but the whole school. And so that's what we're gonna do. But that's one thing. I've done multiple things. I could tell you multiple things, but I don't want to flood you with too
Oh,
much.
that's amazing.
But
Yeah, those are great examples. So basically, you use organizations and they bring them into the school to help the kids with a lot of authentic learning. Yeah, I
Yes,
think that's
authentic
a really
learning.
good.
Exactly.
Yeah. What do you
And
think, Aston?
the student leadership too, right? Like that, just getting kids to be leaders in the classroom is one thing, but then getting them to be leaders school wide is a whole nother thing. And that's what I hear he's doing, and I've seen him do, right, is cultivate students to be leaders, to not only change and have an impact within their classroom, but to have an impact within their entire school community and within their local community. I am curious, one thing, Kip, because especially for listeners who are like, oh, I would love to run, a JSA type club, or I do something really cool in my classroom and I would love to span that outside of my classroom. So I'm curious, when you brought these types of programs and when you wanted to get your kids working outside the classroom and having that larger community impact, how did you approach your leadership, your principals, and sort of, how did you make that happen? Like, what did you need to present to a principal to get them to like buy into you doing something much bigger, and that would have changes, like where your students are actually like making changes to your school community? So how did you get principals to buy into that and like let you run with it?
Yeah, so this is like really important. And I kind of, some people like to do different approaches, but my approach is very simple. My approach is anything that possibly might be controversial, get permission from the principal first. Simple. And it just, if you just got like a little thing might be, get permission from the principal. Go to the top person, the top authority in the school, and get permission from them first. And then everything else, and then it's just like, I have permission, it's simple. And have a conversation with them. Don't look at them as some sort of person that's out to get you. Maybe they're, understanding that principals go through, everyone blames the principal for any problems at the school, right? Parents will blame the principal, teachers will blame the principals, students will blame the principals. I mean, it's a hard position to be in, and understanding that is a hard position to be in. And so try not to be on an animosity, try not to like, think that, the principal is the problem for everything, and just understand the principal is a human being, having to go through all sorts of pressure and everything else. And so just go to them and say, this is what I would like to do. And this is for the kids. And if they say, well, and then be open, like if they're like, well, I'm not so sure about something, and then, okay, then let's work it out. Let's figure out how we can make it manageable at the class, but just make sure that you have the principal's support before you do anything, especially anything that possibly might be controversial. Like, for example, it should, this no place for hate thing that my students are going to launch pretty soon, where every single student in the school is going to start out by drawing what they, if they imagined our school to have no hate, what would that look like? Every student's going to make a drawing, and it's going to go up all over the school. And you just don't launch that without making sure the principal really is cool and wants to do this, and then you go to the teachers and make sure the teacher is willing to do this, and so you don't just like push things on, or just, you don't do, okay, here's a common phrase. A common phrase is, do it, and and do something, and if it doesn't work, and if you get blowback, just say sorry. No, I get permission first, and then I do it. I don't just do something, and then if it steps on people's toes, and just say sorry later. You know what I mean? So I know it's a popular saying to do it, and then you can always just say sorry. No, I don't do that. I don't know if that helps, but always get permission. And then once again, I'm just going to say it again. If you feel like it possibly might be controversial, get permission from let the principal know and get their permission. And then you get to go. You get to run with it.
Thank you. Ghazali? any final thoughts for you before as we move into our wrap up here?
Okay, I've learned a lot from Kip. I'm glad you brought him in today. And it's been a very good learning session for me. And he has brought in a lot of interesting things. I'll definitely be looking at this decentralized classroom concept. Yeah, so it's been amazing meeting you, Kip. Um, Dustin, your summary of today's session?
Yeah, Kip, do you have any final thoughts or any final words of advice before we close up?
Yeah, I'm just going to take it all the way back to the beginning. All the way back to the beginning, because, you know, whatever your approach is, whatever you're going to bring in, that's great. But the very first thing is, what does your classroom look like? Is it inviting? And number two is, what energy are you bringing into the classroom every single day? And during the day, how are you maintaining your energy? I mean, just think about it, right? If I walk into the classroom, I just want you to just picture this, right? I walk into the classroom, there's a do now on the board. I greet them at the door. They go to their seats. They're fairly, you know, they're fairly quiet. Okay. If they're not quiet, then I talk to their facilitators and they quiet them down. And I go in the back and I take roll while they're doing their activity. And then students come up and they start the class and the facilitators take over. And I'm just basically in the back room, I'm not sitting because I have a standing desk, but I'm just like waiting for somebody that needs me, you know? They don't even need me. And I'm just saying, with all that, how do you think I can maintain my energy? I can maintain a lot of energy, positive energy, because I'm there to support them. I'm not there to discipline them. They don't need it because they're basically disciplining each other. They're redirecting each other's behavior and supporting each other. And so that's actually, that kind of goes all the way back to one thing. It goes back to when I was first time I was teaching in a high school on the Laguna Acoma reservation in New Mexico. And they had us go through a professional development. It was on Harry Wong. I don't know if anyone remembers Harry Wong. It was on Harry Wong, and something really stuck with me on Harry Wong. Harry Wong said this. He said, what do you see at the end of the day? You see the students like bouncing out of the classrooms, and you see the teachers like dragging themselves out of the classroom. They're exhausted. He said, it needs to be the opposite, because who's doing all the work in the classroom if they're dragging themselves? The teacher is, when the students are supposed to be doing all the work, right? And so what needs to happen is the students, when they leave the classroom, leave the school, they need to be dragging themselves out of the classroom, and the teachers need to be bouncing out of the classroom. And basically it's all about, once again, energy first. Students need your energy. They need to know they can trust you. They need to know that you can manage yourself so that you can help them manage themselves. And so they need you there. So really just kind of going all the way back to the very beginning, and the very beginning is your energy and the energy of the classroom. Everything else
That's
follows.
awesome. Yeah, I haven't bounced for 2 decades, so I need to start bouncing again out of the classroom.
Yeah, exactly. Bouncing. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Kip. Thank you so much for being here today and just bringing all the wisdom that you bring. So we talked about the importance of positive culture and the ways to build that culture, as Kip just kind of summarized, right? Really making sure that we start with safety, security, and a welcoming environment, making sure that our energy is positive and letting that bleed into the students. We talked about establishing positive classroom culture with some strategies to create that inclusive culture. And Kip talked a lot about that decentralized classroom and really empowering our students to be the ambassadors, the leaders, the facilitators of the classroom. We talked about how we connect with students on a personal level and really making sure that we understand our students, that we're kind with our students, that we show care and respect and love to our students. And then we talked about how we can extend that beyond the classroom through student leadership and really students taking charge, not only in the classroom, but within the school community. And then when you can, even taking that beyond the school community to do something larger. So really appreciate everything that you shared with us today, Kip. It was really, really wonderful. Everybody, thank you so much for being here and listening. Don't forget to subscribe and rate the podcast. Please share it with all of your educator friends. We really, really want to continue offering support through our podcast and other means to educators all around the world. And we want to reach as many educators as we can. So please, please continue to subscribe and share this podcast with others. Our next episode will come out on February 12th. And in that one, we are going to take a nice deep dive into how we can use AI as teachers and within our classroom with students. So we're finally going to get to that deep dive into the AI content. So it's been a pleasure, Ghazali. It's always great to be with you. Kip, thank you so, so much for being with us. Final words?
Oh my God, AI? Oh, I can't wait to listen to this one. It's pretty scary. My students are actually, my students are, I've had way more. I'm like, excuse me, you were supposed to write a poem and you wrote it in iambic pentameter with rhyme. And I'm like, yeah, I think that was probably ChatGPT. What do you think? And they're like, I think,
Probably,
they're
yeah.
like, what's iambic pentameter? I'm like, exactly, but you did it, right?
Oh,
So
yeah, I
good
can't
luck with
wait for this episode.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. And we will we'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.
Bye-bye.
All right. So that's it, right?